was bilingual. It's true. He was a master at writing in both the Scots tongue and English. Most of his poems and songs were written in Scots, as we know. He's famous for that. But then all of his letters, and then some of his poems too, are written in English. And if you don't think those are two different languages, just contrast the poem that I just sang you, which was in English, to this little snippet of a song of his in Scots. She was cut-flugged, paint-lipped, steel-wommet, stature-fitted, chandler-chofted, lang-necked, and yet the jog did dee. And if you're not from Scotland and you understood that, you get a gold star. Now, like many writers, Burns' pen was mightier than the sword, and it was a sword that cut both ways. Have a best friend who's a writer, just ask her. If he liked you, his generosity with his praise knew no bounds. He would just flatter you, it was wonderful. But if you got on his bad side, watch out, because you could find yourself the object of a satirical poem or song in the blink of an eye. And just consider this, which he wrote to one of his friends and patrons. Her name was Mrs. Dunlop, an older lady descended from William Wallace, and he truly respected her. He wrote, "I read your letter, madam, with watery eyes. A little, very little while ago, I had scarce a friend but the stubborn pride of my own bosom. Now I am distinguished, patronized, befriended by you. Your friendly advices, I will not give them the cold name of criticisms, I receive with reverence." And then, by contrast, we have a poem that he wrote for Maria Riddell. Maria and Robert were very good friends until he insulted either herself or her mother-in-law at a dinner party, and we're not sure which it was. But in any case, Maria stopped talking to him, would have nothing to do with him after that, and his feelings were so hurt that he wrote this next poem. It's called Monody on a Lady Famed for Her Caprice, and epitaph on the same. Notice I said monody and epitaph. Yes, Maria was still alive. How cold is that bosom which folly once fired? How pale is that cheek which with rouge lately glistened? How still is that tongue which the echoes oft tire? How dull is that ear which to flattery so listened? If sorrow and anguish their exit await, from friendship and dearest affection removed, how doubly severer, Maria, thy fate! Thou diedest unwept as thou livedst unloved. Love's graces and virtues I call not on you, so shy, grave, and distant, ye shed not a tear. But come, all ye offspring of folly so true, and flowers let us call, for Maria's cold bier. We'll search through the garden for each silly flower, we'll roam through the forest for each idle weed, but chiefly the nettle, so typical shower, for none e'er approached her but rued the rash deed. We'll sculpture the marble, we'll measure the lay, here vanity strums on her radiant lyre, while keen indignation shall dart on his prey, which spurning contempt shall redeem from his ire. Here lies now a prey to insulting neglect, what once was a butterfly, yea, in life's beam, want only of wisdom, denied her respect, want only of goodness, denied her esteem. Now, like most of us in this room, Robert Burns was very concerned with earning a living. For most of his life, he farmed in addition to his writing, or it's really more accurate to say he wrote in addition to his farming. And he later in life took a job as an exciseman to support his wife and children, of which he had many. both in and out of wedlock. So he was not shy about pursuing somebody who owed him money, but one of the greatest labors of his life and one of the greatest contributions he made, he did for free. He worked with 2 different publishers on a great collection of Scots folk song, the greatest known at that time. And he submitted literally hundreds of song lyrics to this collection. Sometimes he would take an old song and write completely new lyrics to it, and then sometimes he would leave most of the lyrics intact to an old song and just change a word here or there. And then sometimes he cleaned them up because they were too dirty. And if you know Robert Burns, you know he was not afraid to be bawdy, but he did clean up these songs for posterity. And for all of this, he didn't accept money. In fact, he wrote to one of his publishers and said, "You may think my songs either above or below price, for they will absolutely be one or the other." In the honest enthusiasm with which I embark in your undertaking, to talk of money, wages, fee, hire, etc. would be downright sodomy of soul. So that's pretty clear. He saw this contribution to Scottish history as his patriotic duty, in a way. And he was a patriot. Robert Burns loved his country. This does not mean, however, that he always agreed with what was going on in the government. And in fact, at one point in his career as an exciseman, he was so outspoken and wrote so much, apparently, about his political views that somebody reported him to his employer, and an inquiry was made. He was investigated. And when he heard the charges being brought against him, he was very indignant. He protested his innocence, and the whole thing turned out okay. He kept his job. And then about a year later, he began working on a song that was so politically charged that when it was first published, it was published anonymously in a newspaper. The subject of the song was Robert the Bruce addressing his troops at the Battle of Bannockburn. And the tune that he used was the tune that was supposed to have been used as a march by Robert the Bruce's army. So the name of this, as we know today, is Scots Wha Hae. And considering what's going on in Scotland right now, I think it's very appropriate to sing this tonight. And if you know it, please join in. Don't be shy. Scots Wha Hae will wall his blade, Scots from Bruce has often led. Welcome to your gory men, for take victory. Now's the day and now's the hour. See the front of battle, see approach from Edward's war, chains and slavery. What would be a traitor